Let's talk about the number. You heard Dr. Kruger. We've heard this described as everything from dismal this morning to tepid to something for everyone. How do you see it?
Carl, this is not even close to what a recovery looks like. Look, we would need to actually have 150,000 jobs created just to keep in pace with population growth. This is not what President Obama promised. I would argue this is the result of failed leadership in Washington, bad fiscal policy coming from the administration, and that is why we have this very tepid report. For every net one job created, nearly four people left the workforce. So this is not what a recovery looks like. We need growth. We need economic growth, and we can get that if we get the right policies in place. That's what Mitt Romney and I are proposing, specific solutions, pro-growth economic policies to get the kind of growth we ought to be having in this economy to get people back to work.
We all know the rate itself is a bit of a black box. A lot of discussion this morning about participation rate.
Right.
But 60 days ahead of an election, Mr. Chairman, and the optics of this is going to be about the number 8.1. Isn't there the risk of some Americans who will say, well, it's not a great number, but it didn't go up?
8.1 this month means 43 months above 8%. Remember when the president promised that he would prevent unemployment from getting above 8% if we passed his stimulus package? It hasn't been below 8% since then. If you looked at the predictions they made when they passed the stimulus, they said that unemployment would be down like at 5.4% today. So this is just another example of lots of promises and lofty rhetoric made by the early Obama presidency or by candidate Obama, and look at the lackluster performance. Look at the broken promises. This is not an economic recovery. We are limping along. This is stagnant growth. For every person who got a job, nearly 4 people stopped looking for a job. That's not a statistic to brag about. Look at factories. 15,000 factory jobs lost, 7,500 of those jobs lost from automakers alone. And so, Carl, what Mitt and I are proposing are pro-growth economic policies, an energy policy, tax reform, regulatory reform, clean up the spending problem in Washington to prevent a debt crisis. Those are the kinds of things that we're proposing, expand markets for our trade. These are the things we need to get growth back in this economy. We have a very serious plan for pro-growth solutions that we think we can get people back to work and really work on this number.
Let me ask you a bit about what the markets are telling you. You like free markets, and I think no one would disagree with what you're saying about this job market in this country, but stocks yesterday closed at the highest level since inauguration. Retail, housing, autos have all been on the margin more impressive than they've been disappointing. They can't all be wrong, can they? And as far as the market rally goes, who owns that?
Well, look, I think Ben Bernanke claims that his model owns some of it. I think what we've had lately is because you've had a lack of leadership on fiscal policy. You've had bad fiscal policies here in America, and you have the Federal Reserve trying to bail out fiscal policy. You sort of have a story around the world of central banks stepping in and trying to bail out lackluster fiscal policy. I think, you probably look at the ECB Draghi press conference yesterday for probably one of the biggest reasons why you had that market rally. But what we have to be clear about is there is no substitute for good fiscal policy. You can't expect central bankers to bail us out all of the time. We have a fusion of our fiscal and monetary policy, which at the end of the day, could spell danger. What we need to do is get our fiscal house in order. We need to have low tax rates, economic growth, regulatory reform, predictability, certainty. Those are the kinds of things that investors and job creators need to be able to take risks. And all they get coming from Washington, from the White House, is the promise of higher taxes, is more regulations. It's those kinds of things that make it impossible for people to predict and create jobs. We're going to change that. We've got a 5-point plan for a stronger middle class, which is specifically aimed at creating economic growth. It's specifically aimed at trying to get our economy to grow on average at 4% a year, which would create 12 million new jobs over the next 4 years if we can get these good pro-growth economic policies in place.